What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 Subaru WRX STI. Huge thanks to Christian for providing me with his brand new 2018 STI to review for you guys today. So about the STI, well, they made some nice little revisions here for 2018 to sharpen up the look and also improve the performance a little bit. So up front here, the biggest changes, you have these new LED headlights that actually swivel in turn so that the light kind of goes into the corner there with you, so you have better visibility at night. You have the larger front air intakes there as well that are partially blocked off by plastic, but there is some functional bits there as well. Overall, just a really nice and sharp front end, so I love the way these new STIs look. Coming down to the sides, you have new 19-inch wheels here, an inch upgrade over the previous one, so a little bit larger and look really good actually. I like this new design as well. You have these neon green, yellowish brake calipers as well that are pretty bold, but I think it's, you know, another nice little differentiation over the prior model year cars. Going down to the back there, it's again the same great STI formula with a large spoiler there and the very nice LED tail lamps, and then this one has the nameless exhaust, which nicely accentuates the lower part of the rear bumper there. And overall, I think it's still just a really great look. You know, it hasn't changed much over the years, but that's a good thing because it's still a really great formula, and I think it's still a really fun car to look at. Right, so for the interior of the 2018 WRX STI, well, it's a very cool place to be. Again, not much has changed, but there are a few nice improvements here for 2018. So anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, these are these awesome new Recaros, which are optional here on the STI and on the WRX Premiums, and they're really cool seats. They're not super aggressive. You would think, you know, Recaros are going to be super aggressive. For example, the Recaros and the Focus RS are much more aggressive than these are, but these, I like them. They're actually a little more comfortable, a little easier to get in and out of than the seats in the Focus RS and a few others. And yeah, they're just a little bit on the firmer side, like you would expect from a sportier seat, but like I said, still very comfortable. Nice torso and thigh bolstering, and overall just really great seats. Next is the steering wheel in the 2018 STI, which is basically the same as prior model years, but that's a good thing because it's a fantastic steering wheel in these STIs. It has a really nice 9-3 grip, nice large 10-2 notches, has a flat bottom. You have this STI little plastic area here, which is painted black now instead of the silvery metal type finish they've had in the past. And you know, you have a few buttons here on it. It's a little bit busy on the left-hand side here, but overall, just a really great steering wheel. Next are the gauges in the 2018 STI, which are, again, very sharp, still look great, and those are unchanged here, really. I think they might have altered the fonts just a little bit, but otherwise, same gauges here, and look really good still, you know? I mean, I've always liked the way these gauges look. They're very exciting. You have a nice little color display there in the middle, which will show your center diff positioning, where that's set up at, and you'll also have your basic trip information, all that kind of stuff there in that center screen, and overall, really nice gauges. And then going over to the center of the dashboard, you'll see this additional set of gauges in the other displays, and that's a larger screen than on the 2015 to 2017 models, and so it's a little bit of a wider display, and it's now full color, whereas before it was partially color. Anyway, it's got a nice large boost gauge there. It looks really good. You also have other things showing you your torque split once again as far as the all-wheel drive system, and your trip information and a few other things like that, but a nice large extra display there, and I'm really happy that they've added, you know, a little bit of a larger screen there. And you also have this nice padded leather material there to you know, cover that as well, and overall it looks really nice. And while we're talking about this leather and whatnot, they've added some nice little bits of trim that I think look a little nicer now. You have some additional padding here down by the transmission tunnel and a few other places, and overall it just feels a little more premium than before, I think. Coming down to the center screen here, it's your typical Subaru Starlink infotainment screen, which I think they introduced back in 2016 here, but it's a really nice system. You know, it's got these capacitive touch buttons on the left and the right, and you have a pretty large center screen there that is very responsive and quick. The only problem is it's not very feature rich. There's just, you know, your basic radio stuff. You have a few Subaru apps, which are, you know, these weird kind of built-in things that aren't too usable, to be perfectly honest. Unfortunately, even though the 2017 and up Imprezas have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, since this is still on the old platform, it still does not have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is really a bummer because otherwise this infotainment screen is really nice looking and, you know, works well, but without the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you're forced to, you know, use some kind of phone mount in order to do anything with your phone. But other than that, it's, like I said, a really good screen. Coming down to the climate controls here, you just have three basic knobs, really simplified and just well laid out, and then all those settings are also mirrored up there on the upper screen, and so overall, you know, really nice and easy to use climate controls there. Otherwise, as far as other buttons and things go, you have the shifter, of course, which is the same great STI shifter you've had for many years now. And then you have the SI drive system down here, which goes from sport to sport sharp, and you can push it for the intelligent mode, which will help with fuel economy and making the throttle response a little more dull. And then you have the locking center diff, which is one of the biggest changes, and I'll talk about this more when we're driving. But it went from a partially manual, partially electronic center limited slip diff to now being completely electronic, and they say that helps with faster response times and makes it a little higher performing without the mechanical element. So we'll have to see if we can really tell a difference when we're driving here, but anyway, an interesting change nonetheless. As far as storage space in the 2018 STI, it's still the same as it always has been before, which is pretty good. So you start off in the doors here with a large map pocket and a bottle holder there. Coming over to the center, you have another nice deep cubby that also has a power outlet built in. And then coming towards the back here, you have two cup holders, which are a good size and have a nice little cover you can put over top of those. And then you have the center armrest, which is nicely covered in this suede Alcantara type material. And you open that up and you have a decent amount of space. It's not enormous, but plenty of space there to fit your phone, wallet, keys, sunglasses, things like that. You'll also find two USB jacks, an auxiliary jack, and a power outlet in there. And so overall, a really good amount of storage space in there. Backseat space in the STI is also really good here. These, all 2015 and up WRX and WRX STIs have really nice back seats. It's just really spacious. They've really made these cars a little bit larger, and so the back seat's one of the areas where you experience those benefits the most. And so I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I still easily have about 3 or even 4 inches to spare back there. Plenty of headroom as well, and so you won't have any trouble fitting anyone in that back seat. And it's a nice back seat too. You have a fold down center armrest now with 2 cup holders there, which is nice to have. You also have bottle holders in the doors on each side, and overall pretty comfortable back seat too. Trunk space in the STI is also pretty good, it's not the largest of trunks out there, but for this segment, it's very competitive, and it's a nicely sized trunk. It's, nice and wide and fairly deep as well, and overall, yeah, pretty good trunk space. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The 2018 STI has this new key that is only part of the upgrade. If you either get the limited or the Recaro seat upgrade, then you get this. Otherwise, you get a standard key. You still have to turn. But anyway, these new Subaru keys are really nice. It has a nice weight to it. It has some metal on the sides. And overall, a really great key. But anyway, with this key, it's keyless entry and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket. Hit the engine start button. And it starts right up. And as you might be able to hear, this one has the nameless axle back exhaust, which is one of the best upgrades you can do for these things. It's cheap and it sounds awesome, and a really great upgrade. And so we'll be hearing some great boxer rumble here from this one. All right, so setting off in the 2018 Subaru WRX STI. Well, the first thing you notice about these, I think, is the excellent visibility. You have this massive windshield that's just so easy to see out of. It's just a really great view, and visibility overall on the STI is excellent. You have very large side windows that are very easy to see out of, and view out of the back is really great as well. You just have that spoiler there, which kind of divides your view a tiny bit, but other than that, it's really easy to see out of. Other things to note here, just cruising in the STI, you have a little bit of a higher seating position than some other sporty vehicles, but actually, I would say you feel like you're sitting lower than you do in something like a Focus RS, but maybe it's a little bit higher than something like a Golf R, just for comparison's sake. But it's a really, fairly comfortable ride here, as long as the roads aren't too rough. For an STI, it's something that you can definitely daily drive. It's not too rough here for this generation at all. Another thing you notice is the clutch throw is very short in the STI, so you just lift your left leg up a little bit and the clutch starts engaging, and that's actually a fairly easy clutch to use. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. This thing takes off. So the STI has the good old-fashioned 2.5-liter turbocharged flat-4 engine that does 305 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque. And so it's the same figure they've had for, 15 years now, but it's okay because it's still a great amount of power, and it's an old-fashioned kind of analog feeling to it. Now so many cars these days have tiny little turbos that spool up immediately, and you don't have any turbo lag. This car, you do have some lag, but it's okay. It adds to the fun and the drama, and it's a different type of feeling. It's definitely traditional turbocharger kind of feeling to it, and that's a fun feeling. It's very enjoyable to drive. And so it's just one of those cars where, you can't just, cruise at 2,000 RPMs if you want to have tons of power right away. You just leave it in the higher RPMs and just let it sing. And it's a good sound too, especially like I said, this nameless axle back just gives it a really great sound. It's not too loud in the cabin here. It's just the right amount of volume, so it sounds really good, but you're not waking up every single neighbor within a 3-mile radius. It's just a very nicely balanced exhaust. But other things to notice here about the STI, now that we're at some slightly higher speeds, it's still just very comfortable. You do have a little bit of wind and road noise. It might be a little higher than what you would expect from some average Honda Civic or something of that caliber, but for a vehicle like the STI, it totally fits and feels really good. And I also have to say that although these roads are very well taken care of that we're on currently, these 19-inch wheels don't seem to have made the ride any stiffer or harsher, at least so far. So it feels pretty good. Another thing, we can try out the brakes here a little bit. We have these Brembo brakes like you've always had in the STIs, but this time they've actually increased them. So they're larger diameter rotors, and it's now a 6-piston caliper that it's actually cross-drilled as well, so helps with cooling a little bit. And they're very stout brakes. I never thought that the STI needed improving on the brakes, though. I always thought the brakes were totally sufficient. But I gotta say that now you just have even more stopping power, and so that's always a good thing. And although the power is always a very fun part of the STI, as we're coming up to some corners here, the handling is what really always makes the STI spectacular. And it is very good handling. It's very flat. These weigh just under 3,500 pounds. And so, it's a pretty lightweight vehicle for, as large as it is. It does a really good job around the corners. The only interesting thing that I notice going around corners is that the steering wheel takes more turns to get around the same corner as a lot of other sporty vehicles. So you have to saw at the steering wheel a little bit more, so it's not quite as sharp or quick of a steering rack as something like a Civic Type R or something of that nature. It just feels good, as we're going up and down these hills. This is just this car's natural habitat. This is where this thing just loves to just eat off the back roads, and it does it all without breaking a sweat, really. It's really great. These brakes also, I mentioned the size improvements, but it's also it's got a really interesting pedal feel where you have a good amount of dead travel, which is a typical Subaru thing. Most of their vehicles do have a good amount of dead travel, but then once you get into the meat of the pad, it's like super firm, where you just are pressing it. It doesn't feel like you're pressing it any further, but it just starts braking harder and harder. So it's an interesting brake pedal that's, I wouldn't say super accurate, but it gets the job done just fine. It's just something you kind of have to get used to. But it really is nice and neutral handling. I mean, the more that you push it, you do feel a little bit of understeer wanting to prevail a little bit, but that's like you would find in any other all-wheel drive vehicle. They did revise the suspension tuning, though, as well as the steering tuning as well. So those two things have been altered a little bit. It's been a couple of years since I've driven an STI, so I'm probably not the best person to nitpick, those changes, but I will say that I think this feels more comfortable than STIs that I've driven in the past. I think the suspension's a little more supple, but the first acceleration was in sport, so we'll put it in sport sharp this time and see how it goes. Yeah, you got much sharper throttle response. It pulls like a freight train. I'm telling you what, the STIs, especially these days, as horsepower numbers continue to balloon and get larger and larger, this being the same 306, 305 horsepower, might sound underwhelming, but honestly, this 305 pulls almost as hard as the Focus RS's 350. I think the Focus RS feels a little bit quicker, but this feels really quick. As long as you got that turbo on boil, if you catch it off boost, it can feel, like it's a little sluggish, but if you're keeping in the meat of the power band, it has no problem being very impressive with its power delivery, and it just feels great. Another interesting thing too is the gearing is very short in the STIs. I'm in 6th gear and I'm doing like 62 miles an hour, and I'm just sitting at 2,500 RPMs. mean, other cars like my Mustang, for example, 6th gear at 60 miles per hour, it's usually cruising under 2,000 RPMs. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of, it wants to keep that turbo on boil. So I think they deliberately make the gearing shorter so that you're always really in the meat of the power band, even on the highway. So you have good passing power on the highway. And another thing too is the rev hang is something that is definitely an issue with the WRXs and something a lot of people complain about. It's never been so bad that I've really been annoyed by it, but I will say that this car seems a lot better. I don't even really detect any rev hang at all, but that's something I'll continue to look for as I continue to drive it. It's amazing that whenever you're in Sport Sharp mode though, it almost makes it a little challenging to be smooth in traffic, because it's like the second you tap the gas pedal, it immediately just wants to jump up with the RPMs, and so it's very touchy gas pedal whenever you're in Sport Sharp. It's fun though, it makes it really eager and playful, and it's very cool. But yeah, whenever you are just relaxed and kind of cruising down the highway here, it's still a pretty nice thing. Like I said, it's a little more noisy than you would probably expect from other non-sporty vehicles of this size and type, but it's a little more noisy than stuff like my Mustang, or like I said, stuff like the Civic Type R, which is on a newer platform, which is a little more refined, and just been developed a little bit more so that it's quieter. STIs have a special feeling with how they accelerate. It's just got this real nice rip in the upper RPMs, where a lot of turbo motors die off in the upper RPMs. This thing just really gets better and better, I think, all the way up to, it's almost a little over 6,500 RPM red line. And it feels so ferocious. I think it's also coming down to the gearing too, with first and second gearing being so much more aggressive than what you see in some other vehicles of this type. And I think that's what really helps to make it feel even faster than it actually is. And it's kind of like the GTR tuning, where the GTR is the same way, where it just rips your head off because first and second and even third gears are so short. And I think this kind of has a similar kind of thing to it. All right, so going around some more corners here, and one thing I think that does help with the grip and the cornering is these new Yokohama tires that they have here on these. They're 245 wide, and again, you're on those 19-inch wheels, which I think, it's a little bit of a more low-profile tire than in the past, so I think it feels a little sharper, but like I said, I don't think it really sacrifices any kind of ride comfort, which is really great. But yeah, I mean, it handles really well. There is a little bit more lean than I would like, and I will say that there's some stuff like the Civic Type R that does feel flatter and lower, and I think actually handles a little bit better, to be perfectly honest. But I think this actually does feel like it handles better and more flatly than the Focus RS, and so I think it's kind of a in between, kind of middle of the road kind of feeling as far as the handling. It's still excellent. I mean, I'm splitting hairs here. The STI is one of the best handling vehicles, in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. It's just really impressive at any price, to be perfectly honest. But I will say that I think they did, they said they modified the steering tuning here for the 2018 STIs, and I'm not sure that I'm in love with it, to be totally honest. I think that in prior years it had a little more feeling to it. This feels a little less precise for some reason. I don't know if it's just a lighter weight or if it's less feeling or what it is, but they changed that, and again, it's a foggy memory, but from what I can remember, I remember the steering feeling a little more confidence-inspiring in the prior model year STIs, and a little more organic. This feels a little more digital, and maybe part of what I'm feeling might be, the torque vectoring and the center diff and stuff that is going on to help get this thing around corners really quickly. And you do have the turbo sounds too, especially at the lower RPMs. You can actually hear a little bit of a whoosh of, the recirculating valve there, and it feels like it feels like every other Subaru WRX STI from the past in a lot of ways. And I like that they didn't try and take it to the next gen. Obviously we'll have to see what they do for the actual next gen version of the STI in 2020 or 2021 and see how that changes things. But I like that this is still kind of sticking to the same classic formula. I was one of those that was very frustrated that they haven't increased the horsepower numbers from the factory here in the STI for years, and they use the same motor. And I've kind of gotten to the point of just accepting it. Subaru's going to do whatever they're going to want to do, and it is what it is. But I got to say that I think now the way you look at that is it's the old school approach to it, and you got this, you know, good old motor, the EJ25s here that are just, you know, they've been around forever, but that means you know what you're getting, you know what you're dealing with these motors, so it's, you know, I think it's still fun. And now, you know, after so many years of having these motors, you almost feel nostalgic about it here, you know, because now even with the standard WRXs, you don't have this boxer rumble anymore, really, you know, with the new FA20 motor. And so, you know, enjoy this boxer rumble while you can, because who knows how much longer it's going to be around. It's a glorious sound, and I think we're going to miss it one day. So I'm not upset that this still has the same motor. It's still a great motor, great sound, and overall the STI is just a great car. You know, I like the little improvements they've made for 2018 here. I like the newer headlights, look cool. I like these Recaro seats. You know, the interior is a little bit nicer. They keep incrementally improving it little by little, and I think that all those improvements, you know, make it a well worth buying. Because the thing with STIs and any WRXs in general is they all hold their value really, really well. They don't really depreciate a whole lot. So, you know, buying a used one, I mean, you can save some money depending on, you know, the condition and the miles and stuff, but honestly, half the time you're just better off buying a new one anyway, because it's not much more expensive. And so, you know, I think, you know, it makes the case even stronger to buy a new one, because they have some really nice improvements here for the new ones. And overall, I think it's just a really great package still. A little more old school than some of the competitors out there these days, but still just as much fun as it always has been. So anyway, let me know all your thoughts on the STI in the comments below. Huge thanks to Christian once again for allowing me to review his brand new STI to review for you guys today. I'll include the link in the description to his channel, by the way, so if you want to follow along with his build, he's going to be modifying this a little bit and doing some stuff to it, and also, you know, just kind of covering what it's like to own a 2018 STI. And so if that's something you're interested in, definitely check out his channel in the description below. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.